invading.
You tell their parents
Isn't that true?
You tell the parents of those 50 kids how great the symbolism was when a suicide bomber blows up all 50 kids.
But didn't it keep Turkey from invading?
No, I'm not. Right.
Is that the right way to do this?
I think the way we look at war is we don't look at
No. Is that the right way to do it?
The question. Never be there in the first place.
That's not the question, though. No, that's all good.
But see, the left agreed with me for so many years. For so many years, the left agreed with me. Hello, everybody. We just had a great meeting with Pete Hegseth. I first met Pete probably 10 years ago, and when he was with the Concerned Veterans of America, or for America, and gave speeches to their group and was very appreciative of the things they were doing for veterans. We've had a good meeting today, and I'm going to be supporting Pete for the nomination for the Department of Defense.
We talked about his wanting to pull troops out of Syria, and everyone saying, if we do that, we're abandoning the Kurds. That's not a good idea. And a lot of folks are saying he crossed the line with a bad decision, but you don't say that. Why?
You know, one of the things I've always supported about President Trump is actually one of the things I liked about President Obama, that we said we were overextended, that the Iraq war was a mistake. I think it's one of the reasons President Obama beat Hillary Clinton, because Hillary Clinton had supported the Iraq war.
When Senator Rand Paul appeared on The View, the conversation was destined to be heated. Known for his unapologetic stance on controversial issues, Paul was met with interruptions, side eyes, and outright hostility from the panel. His effort to present his arguments was repeatedly thwarted by Whoopi Goldberg, Sunny Hostin, and other co-hosts, who seemed more interested in arguing than engaging in a productive debate.
I still think the Iraq war, regime change in the Middle East, and these wars are senseless. So does President Trump. He doesn't want to get us involved in another Iraq war in Syria.
The core of the tension revolved around Paul's views on socialism, U.S. foreign policy, and his critiques of the Biden administration. Rather than addressing his points, the hosts continuously interrupted him, creating an environment where thoughtful discussion was impossible. This behavior mirrored a broader trend where dissenting voices are often dismissed rather than debated.
You have 50 soldiers. They're talking about moving 50 soldiers. Who goes to war with 50 soldiers? You have 50 soldiers and tens of thousands of Turkish troops amassing. The Turks are also allies. The Free Syrian Army were our allies for 7 years. They're allied with the Turks. The Kurds have been our allies. The Kurds, in all likelihood, are now going to be allies of Assad to try to carve out a place in Syria for themselves.
One of the most contentious moments came when Paul discussed his book, The Case Against Socialism. He highlighted how Scandinavian countries, often held up as examples of successful socialism, rely on heavy taxation of the middle class to fund their social programs. The claim immediately triggered pushback from the hosts, with Sunny Hostin outright rejecting Paul's assertions.
The Kurds, in all likelihood, are now going to be allies of Assad to try to carve out a place in Syria for themselves. It's a really complicated question. I guess from my perspective, I say, any of these people out here, their kids have to go to war. War's not a chess game. People lose their limbs and people die, and I think it's the least we owe to kids that we're going to send into this war. Why are we going to war and who are we fighting?
Paul tried to explain that countries like Denmark and Sweden are not truly socialist, but instead operate with free markets and high taxes. However, his points were drowned out by interruptions and accusations. The discussion quickly devolved into chaos as the panel refused to acknowledge the factual basis of his argument. This segment epitomized the disconnect between ideological narratives and reality. Paul's attempt to distinguish democratic socialism from totalitarian regimes like Venezuela was met with outrage, as the hosts seemed more focused on emotional rebuttals than on engaging with the nuances of his argument.
But isn't there... Go ahead.
I'm sorry. So, if you have allies, and they are working with you and fighting with you, and 24 hours, somebody wakes up and says, "No, we're out." Right. Is that the right way to do this?
I think the way we look at war is we don't look at...
No. Is that the right way to do it?
Let me answer the question.
Okay.
When we decide whether or not we're sending our young people into harm's way, we should obey the Constitution, which says we should declare war and put them in a war theater. But let me finish.
Okay.
And here's the thing about it, is if you ask these people, Lindsey Graham and the Cheney war and all these warmongers that want to stay at war forever, who are we going to declare war on?
Paul's critiques of socialism inevitably led to a discussion of Venezuela, a nation often cited as a cautionary tale. The senator pointed out how socialist policies led to economic collapse and widespread suffering. However, his argument was met with outright denial from the panel. Sonny Hostin, in particular, claimed that Venezuela's problems were due to corruption rather than socialism.
And that is now, here's what I'd argue.
That's simply wrong.
It's the
That's simply
GOP's
wrong.
problem.
That's simply wrong in an
ISIS fighters,
accusation.
as being reported, thousands are going to escape from these prisons because the Kurds can't protect
Well, no,
themselves. Up to 70,000, according to a NATO official.
What's the people who don't like the
Is that a
policy?
safer world with
That's the
ISIS
people,
running around?
That's the people who want to stay forever. These are the same people.
I don't want to stay forever, but
Let me
isn't
finish
there a
answering the
strategy?
question, okay? I let you talk, you let me talk. These are the same people. These are the same people that would still have us in Vietnam. These are the same people who always say, stay at war, stay at war, stay at war.
Paul attempted to counter by explaining how socialist policies, such as price controls and nationalization, eroded Venezuela's economy. He stressed that socialism, even in its mildest forms, can lead to disastrous outcomes if unchecked. Yet again, his explanation was interrupted, and the debate veered into a shouting match. This exchange revealed a broader unwillingness to grapple with uncomfortable truths. Rather than addressing the failures of socialism, the hosts deflected by focusing on unrelated issues, further highlighting the show's biased approach to political discourse. The conversation shifted to U.S. foreign policy, where Paul's non-interventionist stance clashed with the panel's more conventional views. Paul argued that endless wars have drained American resources and destabilized regions, citing the Iraq and Afghanistan conflicts as examples. He also emphasized the importance of following the Constitution when committing troops to foreign conflicts.
They don't know who. We're going to declare war on Turkey, our ally.
Should we
the
ever
Free Syrian
walk
Army, our
out
ally.
in the middle? It's like walking
We
out.
should never be there in the first place.
That's not the question, though. No, that's all good.
But see, the left agreed
but
with
we're
me for
in
so
there.
many years. For
We're-
so many years, the left agreed with me.
I am
that
neither
these
left nor right. I'm just American. I want to
know.
know, should we be taking, should we be walking out on people with this much time?
Whoopi Goldberg interjected, questioning whether withdrawing troops from Syria left allies like the Kurds vulnerable. Paul countered by pointing out the futility of U.S. involvement in endless wars, arguing that such interventions often create more problems than they solve. However, the hosts were unwilling to entertain his perspective, dismissing his arguments without engaging with their substance.
But here's the thing is, left and right have agreed in the past that regime change doesn't work. When we got rid of Hussein, we got chaos and more terrorism. When we got rid of Gaddafi, chaos and more terrorism.
But Senator,
it's
we're
incredibly
here now, though.
expensive as well.
But we're here.
Yeah. We're not really here. We got 50 people. We're not
here.
doing
Yeah,
anything.
but frankly,
50 people
hold
is
on,
very
hold on.
symbolic.
It has not helped us. We've been in Afghanistan for 19 years. The same people complaining about this. The Cheneys, Lindsey Graham, you know what they say about Afghanistan? It would be precipitous to leave. We've been there 19 years.
The discussion became even more heated when the panel brought up the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. Paul criticized both Republican and Democratic administrations for mishandling the situation, emphasizing that the 20-year war achieved little in terms of long-term stability. He also highlighted the chaos of the withdrawal, which left Americans and Afghan allies stranded.
Invading.
You tell their parents
Isn't that true?
You tell the parents of those 50 kids how great the symbolism was when a suicide bomber blows up all 50
But
kids.
didn't it
You
keep
tell them
Turkey
why-
from
no,
invading?
No.
The hosts tried to deflect blame onto former President Trump, but Paul reminded them that both parties share responsibility for the failure. His insistence on accountability and constitutional adherence was met with resistance, as the hosts appeared more interested in defending their preferred narratives than addressing the root causes of the debacle.
No, I'm not.
Pulling them
No, no.
gave
You tell
Turkey
their
the
parents.
green light.
You tell their
Isn't
parents
that
why
true?
they're there.
But
You
isn't
tell-
that true?
You tell their parents why they're
Isn't
there.
it true that Turkey
You
did
tell
not
their
How do you
invade?
feel about
Senator, we have
Senator,
How do you feel about
so
the video that we're seeing of the
I
Kurds getting slaughtered?
I find the position of pulling out of these wars, that is a popular one, and I am there. There's a difference in having a strategy and leaving the Kurds there to die.
One of the most striking aspects of Paul's appearance on The View was the hypocrisy displayed by the panel. The hosts criticized Paul for supporting Trump's foreign policy decisions, while ignoring similar actions taken by President Obama. For example, when Obama withdrew troops from Iraq, the hosts praised him for ending the war. Yet when Trump or Paul advocated for a similar approach, they were labeled as reckless.
Breaking our word as Americans, of breaking our words to our allies, of having people who risk their lives who've been there for years. And what message does that send internationally to other allies if we abandon them?
I think the only duty we owe and the only oath I take is to the Constitution.
This double standard highlights the selective outrage often displayed by media personalities. Paul's appearance exposed how ideological bias can distort public discourse, preventing meaningful discussions on critical issues like war, taxation, and economic policy.
We've been asking you, and you refuse to answer, whether anybody on the vaccine committees gets royalties from the pharmaceutical companies. I asked you last time, and what was your response? We don't have to tell you. But I tell you this, when we get in charge, we're going to change the rules, and you will have to divulge where you get your royalties from what companies, and if anybody in the committee has a conflict of interest, we're going to learn about it. I promise you that.
Another flashpoint was the debate over government assistance programs. Paul argued that many Americans already receive substantial benefits, such as Medicaid, Medicare, and food stamps. He criticized the notion that only the wealthy benefit from government programs, pointing out that these initiatives provide significant support to low-income individuals.
Who tries to make the argument that someone in Syria is a danger to our country is really not paying attention.
Oh, I think Assad is in Syria and is a hell of a danger to our country and our world.
Well, actually, if you look at the war is very complicated. So you had Assad on one side. On the other side, you had Sunni extremists, Al-Qaeda and al-Nusra. These are the people that have been allied with the Saudi version of Islam that has been promoting Islamism and Islamist strategy around the world and jihadism. That was the side of the war we were fighting. So if that side of the war actually won, I think we actually might be in more danger. I don't like Assad, but the other people on the other side are Sunni extremists that I don't like either.
The hosts, however, dismissed Paul's argument, claiming that government programs are insufficient and that more needs to be done. Paul countered by emphasizing the importance of self-reliance and the dangers of becoming overly dependent on government assistance. The back and forth illustrated the ideological divide between individual responsibility and collective welfare. Throughout the episode, Paul remained steadfast in his principles, even as the panel attempted to undermine him. His commitment to constitutional governance, limited government, and non-interventionist foreign policy set him apart from many politicians. Despite the hostility he faced, Paul used the platform to articulate his vision for a freer, more prosperous America.
I didn't promise to take the country to war. I promised not to take the country to war. So did President Trump, by the way.
But the Constitution says protecting you from enemies, foreign and domestic.
Yeah.
And there's many of us who feel that this puts us in greater danger because of what it means vis-a-vis ISIS.
Rand Paul's appearance on The View was a masterclass in political theater. Despite the interruptions, hostility, and outright denial of his points, Paul managed to expose the hypocrisy and ideological bias of the show's hosts. His unwavering commitment to his principles shone through, offering viewers a stark contrast to the partisan rhetoric that often dominates mainstream media. What can we learn from moments of open dialogue and respectful debate? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe to keep the conversation going and explore more meaningful debates shaping our society.